about some stuff that is still kind of orientation oriented, I guess. Before I get to what's on the actual screen, I want to give you the safety rundown. We're in the lab room. Our weekly meetings are essentially our lab meetings. So we'll be in this room. We don't meet in another room. We don't have a lecture room that we go to separately. We'll do everything here. But I do want to cover a few things to be sure everybody understands how things work here. To begin with, I want to talk about a few safety issues that are really campus-wide. The first one is calling for emergency response, what we often think of as calling 911. Here on campus, we don't use 911. We instead use 3911, which you probably can't read it from where you're sitting, but I'm holding up the handset from the phone. There's a sticker on the back of that that says that. This is actually the phone number 413-755-3911, which brings into the police department right across the parking lot, the campus police department. We have first responders here on the campus that can get here much faster than the 911 operator can get into the campus. If you were to call from your cell phone or something like that, and you tried 911, you said, okay, I'm at STIC and I'm in the biology department and need somebody to come, they wouldn't necessarily know where to go. You might have noticed that the buildings on this campus are not numbered in any meaningful way. Sure, that's building 1 right up there, this is building 2, but then we got 13 next to us, and 17 and 27. I don't quite understand how the numbering system works, but, so if you said you're in building 2, then not necessarily know where that is. If you call 3911 and we need to get an ambulance on campus, then the campus police will coordinate with 911 and get them here. Also, to get an ambulance to this building, the best way is to come up this road, which is one-way traffic that way. So campus police will shut down this road so that emergency vehicles can come up the other direction, instead of making them go all the way around campus. But also, the first responders that can get here from our police department of student health might be able to handle things. Will not need to call for an ambulance. So, if you're somewhere where there's one of these black phones attached to the wall, just dial 3911. That's an in-system call. But if you're using your cell phone, use the whole 10-digit 413-755-3911. I have actually had to use that a few times, and they've all been in this room. So I want people to be aware of that. One of the times that I did it was for myself. I mentioned the biking thing and getting dizzy. I have some cardiac issues, and so my blood pressure was not under very good control for a little while, and actually teaching here one time I got a little dizzy. I was standing up front. I actually kept going and pointing at things on the screen while sitting on the stool up there because I'm just that kind of professor. But once I finished my thoughts, I had the break there because it was about midway through the class. And during the break, I called 3911. Ended up getting an ambulance over here. So there can be some serious issues that come up. Just be aware of that. Anywhere on campus. Also, anywhere on campus, you might need to evacuate wherever you are. You should see a white placard on the wall like we have right next to the door here. It tells you what to do. For this room, if there's an evacuation call, which will be announced through the fire alarm, which is that red thing in the ceiling up above Melissa, and you'll also hear a voice saying something to the effect of, an emergency has been reported in your area, please evacuate the building, or something like that. If the voice comes on and says that and then stops abruptly in the middle of it, we can assume that they've canceled the fire alarm. But if it goes on for a little while, we leave, or if the flashing light continues on, then we need to leave from here, go down the hallway to the end stairwell, and go down and get away from the building. It surprises me how few people understand this concept. If you're being asked to evacuate a building, you don't necessarily know why, and it could be that it's on fire, don't stand right next to the building. Please get away. It'd be best to go onto the green across that way because then you can see what's happening and you know when it's safe to go back. I've evacuated to that side of the building, and the emergency responders don't think to tell anybody over there that it's time to go back in. So one of my students happened to be watching around the corner and saw everybody else go back in, so we need to go back in. But don't stand right next to the building. Either you're going to block somebody's ability to get into the building and render aid, or you could be underneath something that might explode and fall. Oh. I was about to point out about the wall, the door here, but they painted the walls in here, so they took this sign down off of here and never put it back. I can't remember where we put it. Oh, here it is. So that sign up there said no smoking, eating, or drinking. Now, the no smoking thing, while it's a good idea not to smoke just in general for your health, and again, talk about that in A&P2 if you take that with me. It's also against state law to smoke in a building like this. And in fact, to smoke within 25 feet of any of the doors. If you've seen any of the painted blue lines outside the doors, those are supposed to indicate how far away from the door people have to stand and smoke. So if you are a smoker, I would appreciate it if you recognize that because it is a state law issue. The no eating and drinking, those aren't necessarily state laws, but they are there to address safety concerns for a science department like this. I'm adamantly going to point out that you should not be eating in this room. And it's not just don't eat during class, like you can eat during a break or before class. Don't eat in this room. This is a science lab. We are not going to do anything that incredibly disgusting in here this semester. It's more A&P2 that's disgusting. But also, people that are taking microbiology upstairs come down here to take A&P. So you can imagine that between the bodily fluids that are used, I'm talking about the blood lab they do in A&P2, and the urinalysis, as well as what might be on microbiology people's hands as they come down here. The surfaces in this room are probably not the cleanest in the world. And the easiest way to transfer pathogens into your body is orally. Okay. So, yes, feel free to use hand sanitizer all you want. But it's just best not to eat in here because it's very easy to transfer things in. Drinking is along the same lines. It's another way to transfer pathogens into your system. But I don't really enforce that, or I should say I have a very special aspect of enforcement. You might have noticed that I've been drinking. I mentioned a little earlier that I have some cardiac issues. Mainly, I tend to have low blood pressure, and so I need to keep my volume up by drinking all day long. So I'm going to drink, and I'm not the kind of professor that says, well, I'm a professor, I can do whatever I want, but you're the students, so you have to follow rules. I'm going to enforce the same rules on you that I follow myself. So you are welcome to drinking here, but there are some stipulations. It has to be in a covered container. So I happen to have my brand new sippy cup today, which we had the big meeting on Thursday from the VP. I'll often have a Starbucks cup or a travel mug or something like that. Screw top bottles, whatever, those are fine too. I do not want to see any pop top cans. I don't want to see any empty, open containers. I had this one student one summer, it just drove me crazy. He'd stop by Dunkin' every morning and get a coffee. He'd come in with this styrofoam thing, take the lid off of it and set that down in front of me. It's not what I want to see. If he just left the lid on top, it would have been fine. Okay, that's a covered container. Eating is a very easy way to get pathogens into your system. Drinking, it's a little different. You should be careful with drinking, but as long as it's covered, things shouldn't get into it. More important with drinking, it's about spilling things and the bacteria that are probably on surfaces in here. If you spill a Red Bull or something like this, that's just fuel for bacteria. All that sugar, you're going to eat the bacteria are going to live off that. It'll get really disgusting. So that's sort of what the drinking is. While I'm back here, I want to point out to you this metal handle thing here. This operates a safety shower in the ceiling. It is code for a laboratory that has a fume hood like this over here, also have a safety shower. We don't use the fume hoods anymore. I might have a colleague or two that wants to use it, but I think the last guy that used it retired this year. So we don't actually use it, but we still have to have these in because of code. It is checked on a regular basis. That's what this thing hanging here is for, so you don't have to check to make sure that it's okay. And also, it's code to have a shower when you have a hood like this, but apparently it's not code to have a drain. There's no drain for this shower. And the computer lab down below us would probably be very upset if somebody pulled this. It's not likely to be used. I just mention it because you're probably going to be back here. All of the microscope slides that we used when we look at tissues are back here. So if you're back here waiting to get your microscope slides out, this is not just a convenient handhold. Okay? Don't pull it. Another water feature that we have in this room, which is only slightly more likely to ever be used, but probably not going to be used, is the eye wash station that we have up here. If you happen to get something in your eyes, there's a big button that even a blind person could find. And you do that, and you can wash your eyes out pretty easy. It is tested on a regular basis, as you can tell from my demonstration there. It does have a drain. It's okay to do that. But you don't have to test it. You've got to play with somebody that's test it. So we have that there. If you feel concerned about getting things in your eye, you can see there's a drawer right there that's slightly ajar that says safety glasses on it. If you feel that you need to wear safety glasses, you can. There's nothing in A&P1 that really requires safety glasses, and truthfully in A&P2 I don't usually say anything about it to anybody, but if you want to, they're there. We also have gloves over here. At one time as a department, I thought we had decided that we were going to make students bring in their own gloves, but we never stopped providing gloves here. And we don't really use gloves a whole lot. Again, especially for A&P1, there's a couple of labs in A&P2 that gloves are required for. If you have a need to wear gloves in this room, please buy your own gloves. But for the few times in this course, and really in A&P2, that you need gloves, we actually do have enough to supply them. We have bleach bottles around the room. They have these yellow tops on them. So if hand sanitizer doesn't quite make you feel comfortable in here, you can also bleach down the countertops where you're sitting or working. Feel free to use that. Not that you can see it or get to it very easily, but there's a fire blanket right here. I don't know if you ever learned back in grade school, stop, drop, and roll, but that's what fire blankets are for. They help put fires out that are on people. Very unlikely that we'll need it. We actually don't have a fuel source in this room. This door right here, which cannot really be opened, or you have to have a tool to open it, gets to where the gas valve used to be. Since we don't actually use Bunsen burners and that kind of thing in A&P, we ended up just cutting the fuel line here. So those gas spigots, whatever you call them, on the counters in front of you, those are not actually operational. So there's very little chance of getting fire in here. But we have a fire blanket here. There's actually a fire extinguisher back there next to the safety shower, like I was pointing out earlier. There's that. We have a notebook here with MSDS, or material safety data sheets, for the things that are in this room that get used by labs done in here. Generally speaking, for the things we use, that's not very necessary. As long as you're not actually drinking anything, you're probably going to be fine. The worst things that we have in this room are probably in this cabinet here, which are mostly staining chemicals. And again, as long as you don't drink them, the worst that's likely to happen is that you get some stain on your fingers or something like that, which will go away in a day or two. Probably the worst thing in here is the bleach. But, so that's the safety orientation to the room. I hope you feel safer now. Again, it's not really until A&P2 that we have any real specific things that we need to cover, but I might decide to do something this semester that I haven't done in the past. So if there are any special safety instructions that I need to give you, I'll give them to you at the beginning of the class when we're doing something. I want to go on to Blackboard for a second just to show you things. Hopefully most of you have gone on there already. If you need to get to Blackboard for the first time, use this pull-down menu on the stick home page. There's Blackboard right there. Just hit the Go button and take it to this site. Go ahead and bookmark this site. You don't need to keep doing that from the pull-down menu I just showed you. This is actually hosted on the blackboard.com website. The STCC here is just our little corner of that website, but we subscribe to using Blackboard. I point that out just because it's a separate website. So if the school website goes down for some reason, it's not going to affect Blackboard. And Blackboard, their business is to provide, online support like this. So they're down very rarely. Usually when they're down, it's because they have a scheduled maintenance, and they'll notify everybody that that's going to happen. Okay, just get familiar.
I have the app.
Yeah, and there is an app for this if you have a smartphone or a tablet. The app you have to subscribe to. I think it's $1.99 for a year.
It's forever because I had it last year. Once you pay for it, you have it.
When they first started the subscription service, they had either $1.99 for a year or $5.99 forever. Okay, maybe they switched to not having it just here. Well, then I need to get $4 back.
The option, yeah, to do that, so I just paid it.
Yeah. Some people like using the app. Some people are fine using the website on a mobile site or something like that. A device of some sort. If you didn't know this, your login username is the same as your student email, everything before the @ sign, which is probably your first initial, middle initial, and last name, although there's some variations there. The password, if you've never logged in before, is explained in the login instructions here. Everybody starts with the same first password, which might be your student ID number. Yeah. And then change it to something that you'll remember easily and that somebody else can't figure out on their own. When you first log in, you'll go to a page that looks like this, except you won't have this huge list of A&P courses, because of course those are mine. But you will see the A&P1 DO5. Click there, and it'll take you to this page. If you've used Blackboard with other courses, you've probably gone to a different looking front page. I've set this up because the normal default is to go to the announcements page, which looks like this. And I don't really use the announcements too much, so this isn't going to change too much from throughout the semester. So that gets kind of boring. So instead, I put this here. If you go into the notification settings here, you can set it up so that you get notifications in this pane about due dates. You can also set up to get email or mobile, meaning through the app, notifications also. But I'll let you investigate that. Mostly because I'm an instructor and I can't show you things that students have because I'm not considered a student. Like, I don't have any due dates because I'm not a student. I don't have any assignments to complete. So if I went in here and showed you this, when I came back out, it would still look exactly like this with nothing due. So, but if you want to go in and investigate the notification settings, go ahead. I just realized that the side of the screen here is being cut off a little bit, but there's a menu down the side. What I've done in the past is I've had a link in here to whatever we're currently working on. I had to remember to change it week to week, and I wasn't very good at that. So I just put a link to all of the different weeks worth of information. It takes a lot more space, but I won't forget to change things this way. Hopefully you've already gone on here to the before the first class thing, which of course we're in the first class, so this is
sort of old stuff. But the idea was for you to do these three things right here, which is send a text message, complete this attendance app data, and submit a profile picture. I already mentioned that I use text messaging. This is the number I have. I would appreciate it if students would send me a text message at the get-go so that I have you in my contacts, so I don't just have text from 413-555-1212. I actually have your name in my contacts. And there's a couple of other things just so I can organize those contacts better. Including your email address. If you send me a short text message, but I have to send back a much longer response, I'm going to use your email address. So please include an email address there. This link will take you to a form to submit some information, which is a bit redundant with what I'm asking for the first text message, but it makes it easy for me to put it all into this app I use to keep attendance. And at the end of that, it's going to tell you that you need to submit something to get credit. If you click on where it says attendance app data, this is an assignment, which means that first off, you go to this page, which tells you a few things about how this assignment's set up. Hit the begin, and there's one question. There's just a blank for you to put something in after you've completed that data. Okay. If you've done the attendance data app form and you didn't catch this or whatever, go back in. You can put the stuff in the form again. You get to the end where it gives you the information of what to put in there. I get a timestamp on the database where this information goes, the form stuff goes, so I know when you did it, and I can give you credit for doing it on time based on that. Even if you are doing this part late, I'll still give you the credit for getting the data in for me. Okay. I didn't do that for the text message. You can click here like it's an assignment, but there's nothing to do here. So if you hit submit, it won't do anything. But for my A&P2 students, I tried something out. I text them back something that they have to enter in to get the credit. Decided not to do that for you guys. The profile picture, same kind of thing. Click here. There's a button that says browse my computer. Go to this, and then you can pick a picture and submit it. Okay.
That was the thing. I was trying to figure out if it was any picture or did it have to be a picture of you?
It's the point of it is so that I can recognize who you are. So if it's not a picture of you, it's not very helpful. So, and then hit the submit button there. Now with this one, I can see who submitted pictures, and then I download them and I can give you the points right off. So this one works kind of nicely. It says 0 points possible, which means that any points I give you are extra credit. The other assignments don't look the same as this because just attaching a picture makes that very easy. But you can do all of that. There's a little something here to say about the textbook and lab manual, which I already said. And then this says syllabus Prezi. Now Prezi.com is the website I use for presentations. And Prezi, if you can't tell, is just a cute little truncation of the word presentation. If you go to this, it'll take you to this A&P1 orientation presentation, which takes a little bit of time to load because it's got a bunch of stuff in it. But if you just hit the play button here, it'll go ahead and play out the whole thing. There's voiceover explaining different things. Or if you want to, you can hit the arrow button here. Now, there's a speaker in the projector there that's you're gonna hear my voice coming out of. Not very well. But when you hit the arrow button, it goes to the next slide and it skips to the next voiceover. So you can do that. If you want to just jump ahead, if you're tired of listening to me or something like that, you can use the arrows. But if you just hit the play button in the bottom left corner, it'll just play the whole thing through. This is what the questions that we did the first half today were based on. If you didn't get a chance to look at that, I suggest you do go ahead and do that because it has some useful information. The written syllabus is also here off to the side, so you can click on syllabus here and see it in a bit more detail. I'm going to try to have this kind of thing a little bit more often. I had this idea over the summer that I was going to get a bunch of stuff done, and I didn't. I actually have one that I want my A&P2 students to use that I need to have ready tomorrow because A&P2 starts tomorrow, and I'm only about halfway through it. So we'll see how well that works. And then this weekend, I'm going to try to get stuff done for you guys for next week. But I'll have these kind of links in there, and I put this one here because it's something I wanted you to listen to before today. So in the email that I sent to everybody and the instructions that I've given, for these 3 assignments, if you did them before class today, you'd get 5 points extra credit per thing here for a total of 15 possible. If you've done these, but like you didn't put the thing into the attendance app data at the end, like I was saying a second ago, and you do that now, you'll still get the extra credit because filling out the form is what I wanted you to do. If you do that on time, you'll get the credit there. If you haven't done this stuff yet, if you do it before our next class meeting, you'll still get 3 points extra credit for each of them. Okay, so you won't get as much as if you read your email before you came to class and knew that you had to do this, but you will get something for getting it out of the way now. Yeah.
I just signed up this morning, so I was not on the list of receiving the emails, so I was not able to do any of that.
So you get 3 points each. Sorry. Hey, it's extra credit. That'll be good. So you have that stuff there. Then for each week, I go through this in the syllabus presentation, but I just want to show you. First off, I don't say anything about this in the syllabus presentation, but you will not see this. Actually, what things will look like is this for you. So what I'm about to talk about, you don't see. But what we just did, the questions that we did in the first half today, came from this syllabus quiz. So this is not an item that's available. This is an assignment for you to do. The points that you got for all the questions that you answered correctly in what we did this earlier will go into this assignment here. And it'll work, trust me. And then there will always be reading assignments for each chapter. This goes directly to the OpenStax college textbook and to the section that the reading's about. So chapter 1, Introduction to the Human Body. There are several modules here, all of the chapters, a reading assignment. It takes you to the introduction part, and you can just move through and read that stuff there. And then, I explain all of this in the syllabus presentation a little bit, but these are the assignments associated with chapter 1. Again, this is what you'll actually see. When you go in, you'll just see introduction part 1. There's 4 parts to this. Parts 1 and 2 are multiple choice quiz type things, 10 questions each with a 20-minute timer. They're essentially reading quizzes. And then part 3 is fill in the blank questions, and part 4 is open-ended type questions. The idea here is that these 4 assignments kind of build up to more and more challenging questions. It'd be the same as a test that you'd have in a regular class. The part 1 and 2 would be the reading quiz stuff, and then parts 3 and 4 would get into the test questions a little bit more.
So each week all of this is due.
Right, so each folder, each chapter has a set of assignments like this. We don't have big tests, so it's not like in 4 weeks we're going to have a big test over chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is what we have.
So like for the 4 things that we have to do, that has to be done by like next Tuesday?
So
11:59.
yeah, so if you click on any assignment, any graded assignment, you'll see this page here that tells you everything. For this particular one, it's a timed assignment, so it says that you have 20 minutes to complete it. It tells you, however, for the timer that you'll be notified when the time expires, and you can either continue or submit. So for the timing, the timed assignments like this goes with the universal design thing for accommodations. It doesn't kick people off. So if people do need more time, they can use it. If you don't have an official accommodation for extra time, and you go over time quite a bit, I'll have an issue with that. But if you go 1 or 2 minutes long or something like that, no big deal. And I was saying earlier during the break, some people forget to submit these things, and so the timer says that they've been working on it for hundreds of hours. I know that means that you just forgot to hit submit, but it doesn't automatically kick you off. There is one assignment that does that at the end of the semester. The cumulative final has a timer that kicks you off when it's over. But more on that when we get closer to December. Forced completion, that's just the weirdest thing here, but this is a property of if you have to finish this in one setting or not. For the timed assignments, you do. For untimed assignments, you don't. So under forced completion for other assignments, it'll say you can save and resume this later or something like that. It says this allows multiple attempts. It doesn't tell you how many attempts there are. There's 2 possibilities. For these part 1, 2, 3 assignments, you have unlimited attempts to work on them, and I'll explain why that's important in a sec. For the lab quiz assignments, you get 3 attempts on them. And only 3 attempts. Now, the reason why there are multiple attempts here is that the way these 4 assignments work, they're sort of building on each other. You have to successfully complete part 1 to go on to part 2. And you have to successfully complete part 2 to go on to part 3. And by successfully, what I mean is you need to get a score of 80%. For a 10 question thing, you need to get 8 out of 10 correct. There's a little wrinkle to that, which is your scores on all your attempts are averaged. So you have to have an average of an 80 on those assignments to be able to go on. So if you open up part 1 and you take it once and you get 4 of the 10 questions correct, you obviously have a 40. Or you have a 4 out of 10. You have 40% correct. That's not enough to go on. So you have to do it again. If you do it again, which it has unlimited attempts, so you can take it as many times as you need to. And the next time you get 8 out of 10 correct, that's 80% on that attempt, but you have to have 80% average across all your attempts to go on. So you actually have a score of 6 out of 10 average between the 4 and an 8 in 2 attempts. So you have to do it again to get the grade up. Okay? Now, the reason I've done this, I started doing it over the summer with my A&P1 classes, is because what people will do is not actually try too hard on these. They'll open it up, they'll just randomly click, I don't know, maybe go through, put A in for all of them or something like that. And then open it again, and anything that they didn't get correct the first time, they know it wasn't A, and so they try again. Now, that actually doesn't work because each time you do this, 2 things happen. 1, the 10 questions you get are being pulled out of a bigger pool of questions. So if you open it up once and answer all the questions, you open up another attempt, you're not going to get the same questions. You might get a few repeated questions, but you're also going to get some new questions. The other thing that happens is that in multiple choice questions like this, the A, B, C, D choices get randomized each time you get that question asked. So if you go through and you hit A for each one, and then you go back, what was A before might be C, or something like that. But still, people were just doing it by brute force. They'd make multiple attempts on things and just keep answering until they figured out what the correct answer was by process of elimination, which I didn't like. Yeah.
Oh, you said you needed an 80 to move on, right?
Yeah.
So how do you grade it with them? Do you need to get an 80 to pass? Or to 80 to move on, or are they not graded?
Since it's multiple choice, the computer grades it automatically. I don't have to grade it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but what I'm saying is, don't you need an 80 to move on, so aren't you guaranteed a B? Or does it take your first grade?
No, it's the average of all of them. So yeah, once you finish the part 1 assignment, you'll have an 8 out of 10 or better on that to move on. That 80% cutoff only applies to part 1, 2, and 3 assignments.
Okay.
So for the chapter assignments, all four, yeah, on 3 of the 4 assignments, you should have an 80% on that, a B on it. But the last one, you only get 1 attempt on because I have to grade it by hand.
Is that one
And-
more, is that weighed heavily or?
No, the parts 1 and 2 are 10 multiple choice questions, each worth a point. And then part 3 is 5 questions, each worth 4 points apiece, so a total of 20. And then part 4 is 3 questions, each worth 6 a point piece, which I guess question by question, yeah, they're worth more, but the assignment is only 18 points, which isn't that far off from it. So the whole thing is 58 points. On 40 of those points, you're practically guaranteed to have 80% correct. But the last 18, yeah, there's no guarantee.
You get
that
one
you-
attempt.
Yeah, right. So these are kind of the high stakes questions, and they're the questions that make sure that you understand what's going on and that sort of thing. But back to the reason why it's averaging. Too many people were doing it by brute force, and especially the fill in the blank part 3 things. That was just frankly annoying. I introduced this new averaging thing to my A&P1 class over the summer. My A&P2 students had A&P1 for me back in the spring, and they didn't have that, so I didn't enforce it in the spring, summer. And I had this one student who was a very good student, but she'd do one of those things like 40 or 50 times. And each time somebody does one of those assignments, especially when they do it after the due date, I have to go through and click on it to approve that it's late, which was driving me crazy. And what she was doing, what most people were doing on those, is that they'd pick one of the blanks and they'd keep throwing words in there until they got that blank correct. And then they'd move on to the next blank. And so there would be 40 or 50 attempts on one assignment because they were doing it by brute force. So now it's based on an average. And so when people did it that way, they'd have 20 assignments that got zeros, 20 attempts that got zeros, and then 1 attempt that got 4 points, and another attempt that got 4 points. And eventually they'd get to the 16 points that they need out of it. Now, you can't leave blanks blank. You have to put something in. Now, you can still kind of do it by brute force, but you have to type in all the answers each time you do it, which is kind of sneaky teaching thing. The more times you type in those answers, the more it's going to get incorporated in your head. So if you're going to make me go through every single attempt that you make, then I'm going to make you type out every single answer there. I'm not quite that. I don't know. Sounds meaner than I actually am. But that's the idea here. Using this from A&P1 classes over the summer, I think it worked great because there are fewer attempts made, but stronger performance. If you get 4 out of 10 on the first try and 8 out of 10 on the second try, then you have to do it again and you got to get it again. And since it's averaging, you're going to slowly bring that 6 out of 10 up to an 8 out of 10. But you're never going to quite get up to having 100%. If you've got the time to do it, you can keep putting answers in, and eventually, you're going to get all 10 questions correct over and over and over and over and over again, and they'll slowly creep that grade up to higher and higher one. But you'll never quite hit 100%.
What if you do worse? Does it drop it down?
Sure, just averages everything.
Yeah.
The second
Okay.
attempt you make, you get 4 correct on the first attempt. Second attempt might be a completely different set of questions, and you might only get 2 correct there. So then you get
3.
your average is 3. So yeah, The point being with this approach is that you're going to be more mindful about doing it. It's a timed assignment, right? So you can't open it up and then start looking up the answers to each question. You have to prepare for it. So that's the idea behind it. And I think over the summer I saw that worked pretty well. Also in this folder, what you'll see is a makeup assignment. So obviously you are all present today. And I didn't take attendance until after the break and everybody was here by then. So the late thing doesn't really apply. But for anybody that isn't here today, they'll be required to do that. Anybody can go into these assignments. It's just, since you're present, and if I remember to do it, I'll exempt you from it. Okay? Now, the way these work is I've just gone through and pulled down or embedded YouTube videos in here. So many of them come from this guy, Mr. Ford, who is probably not too unlike me. He's an A&P teacher. He's got a bunch of YouTube videos of lecture material. He actually has a website where you can pay to get his whole course, but there's a lot of them that are available online. And then it's followed by, in this case, some matching and some fill-in-the-blank questions. And here's another one with multiple answer question, et cetera, et cetera. That's the kind of thing that I'm talking about here. Just two. Those are the makeup assignments. If you are here on time for a given course, given day, you're not going to be required to do that, but you can if you want to. And yeah, so actually, I'm going to try to cover some of the material here today, but I'm not going to get a chance to go through everything I want to. So I would suggest you at least go into this and watch the videos. You don't have to answer the questions if you don't want to, but it wouldn't help, it wouldn't hurt for the sake of understanding. For this particular one, I think all of it's auto-corrected, so if you want to go ahead and do that, you can. After I started doing this, after a little while, I decided to put at least one manually corrected question in so I could see who's doing the work. So if you do these, there will occasionally be one open-ended question, but you can't do it. There's also a lab quiz. Now, there should be a lab quiz in pretty much every folder because there's going to be lab material that we cover, and in fact, we're going to do that today. In this case, the makeup assignment and lab quiz are going to be kind of over the same stuff, but for other material, it won't necessarily be like that. For instance, I keep going to skeleton as an example because it's such an obvious anatomy example. But when we study the skeleton, we're going to talk more about what bones are and how they grow and repair themselves for the lecture component. And then the lab component is going to be more about what are bones and what are their names, where they're located, that kind of stuff. So the makeup assignment for the skeleton stuff will be more about what bones are as organs, and then the quiz is going to be more about where they are by name. For this chapter, it's kind of one and the same, but for other chapters, it'll be a little bit different. So that's what your average unit, week, chapter, whatever you want to say, looks like. There are some, oh, that's right, I didn't have to do that. I was about to say there are some that have 2 sets of assignments, but I forgot I was able to break that up. Or did I? Yeah. So I usually have the skin and skeleton chapters in 1 week together, but I actually was able to break them up because of how the calendar worked this semester. So never mind about that. But the screen's cutting off a lot of this menu, but you can see this one that sticks way out. This is the lab practical. When we get closer to this, I'll explain what's going on in this folder, but it has its own thing. Now, since we only meet once a week, which is essentially our lab meeting, that week, I'm pretty sure that's all we're going to do. I try to make it that way, but if we're behind schedule and stuff, we might need to use the whole day. But hopefully that week, which is October 27th, it looks like, you'll just have that test that day, which you'll be done with in an hour or 2. That'll be it for the day. Most likely. I reserve the right to need to use more of that day, but I'm expecting at the end of the, when we get to that, it'll be fine. At the end of the semester, we have the same thing. There's another one down here, which is for the second lab practical. It also has a cumulative final here. which is an online assignment. So these three things are kind of just like what I just showed you. This will be done during the final exam period, the second lab practical, which, it says right there. No, that can't be right. It says December 15th,
Yes.
but I think the last day of classes is December 16th. So I obviously got it wrong. Maybe it's December 17th. I'll have to check that. I just got an email from the registrar this morning. She was going to get the final exam schedule up on the website in the next couple of days. So I'll double check that. I might have done it in the syllabus, correct? Oh. Nope, didn't do it there either. Okay, sorry. But that's in December. We'll figure it out when we get closer, when that date is exactly. With what's explained in that presentation, the syllabus and stuff, I think you can get most stuff about how the class works. If you have any questions about things over the coming week, feel free to contact me with questions. Very important point about due dates, what the due dates are explained a little bit more, but I want to say this explicitly so everybody understands. Due dates are suggestions, which is to mean there's no penalty toward your grade if you do something late. So for instance, the introduction part 1, 2, 3, and 4 assignments that I just showed you, those are all due by midnight before you come into the next class, 11:59 next Monday. Yeah. If you don't get everything done by midnight next Monday, don't freak out. You will never have to ask for an extension, because if you don't get something done on time, just get it done, it won't affect your grade. The consequence that does happen is on those part 1, 2, 3, 4 assignments, the grade for something when you submit it late doesn't go into the system unless I check it off. So if you do part 1 on time and let you go on to part 2 if you get the score correct, and you do that late, then it won't let you go on to part 3 until I check off the late assignments. It's the only consequence of doing things late. What I would strongly suggest is if it's Monday and you're trying to get stuff done on time, get the part 1, 2, 3 assignments out of the way. The lab quiz, if you have to do the makeup assignment, part 4, all of those assignments, if you do those late, there's really no consequence. As long as you got part 3 done on time, you'll be able to do part 4 even if you do it late. And the lab quiz,
So that doesn't get affected either. No, you don't get penalized for the quiz either.
No, nothing. You don't lose any points for doing things like that. I used to have these assignments that I don't do anymore that were time sensitive, but everything here is not time sensitive. Now, I'm saying that because there's a lot of work in this class and people kind of freak out and things come up and real life gets in the way and all that stuff. But I don't want you to freak out. Don't go, oh my God, this is due in 5 minutes, and scramble real quick to try to get it done and suffer from that by not doing a very good job. Take your time. If you submit it late, it's not a horrible thing. If you submit a part 1, 2, or 3 thing late, you can't go on to the next part, but at least you can get that, get the best grade on that possible. If you have like a part 2 thing that you're doing late, you can keep doing multiple attempts on that if you need to. But I don't know if it tells you your score, because it's all kind of new how this stuff works. We'll kind of have to figure out how that works. But I've not had anybody with big problem about this stuff.
Can we do it ahead?
Sure. If you want to sit down and do the whole course this weekend, you're not going to do very well, but you can do that.
Someday when I have all of the presentation stuff ready, like that syllabus presentation, and I have that for the rest of the course, people could sit down and do everything. Because the biggest problem that you'd have, like if you sat down right now to try to do, the muscle, nervous system stuff, there's a lot of stuff that the questions are about that have to do with what we learn in this class. So you can do the part 1 and 2 stuff you can do, because that's all really about the reading. So if you want to get ahead on all that stuff, I'd hold off on the part 3 and 4 stuff until we've had that material ready. But if you want to, you can go ahead and get into them more. Now, having said all that, partly I'm saying this because I don't want people to freak out about due dates and getting things done on time and getting overwhelmed. If you get overwhelmed or real life gets in the way or something comes up, your kid gets sick on a Monday afternoon and you just can't get stuff done, whatever it may be. Don't worry about things being late. You don't have to contact me. This is built into the system. If you say, well, I can't get this done on time, can you approve me to go on to part 3 ahead of time? You can't do that. That's not how the system works. So your grade's not going to suffer from being late. It's just you got to wait for stuff to be checked off as being late. I don't grade it. I just say, okay, I see this late. You can go on. That's all it has to take. If you're waiting on that stuff, feel free to text or email me and say that you're waiting on something. I'll try to get to it as quickly as possible. But this is not to say put everything off to last minute. Okay? I've had this kind of set up for a few semesters now, and I can tell you with great certainty that people that put work off to the last minute don't do very well in this class. Okay? The due dates are suggestions, but if you keep on top of when the due dates say things are due, then you're going to do better in this class. If you're not doing chapter 1 material until Thanksgiving break or something like that, you're not going to remember what we covered at this point in the course anymore. Okay? So it's best to keep on track with all this stuff. Just understand that something comes up and you don't quite hit the due date, it's not going to be the end of the world. Any questions about that stuff? I think that's all the major stuff I want to mention. All of the things that are linked here, these week 1 through 14, it's just linking to what's in this weekly material folder. And also, this is sort of a schedule also. So for instance, we don't have class on October 13th because Columbus Day is the 12th and Monday. And Monday classes are meeting on Tuesday that week. So we won't have class that week. So you can look at this and remind yourself, or you can go to the syllabus and it says the same thing here. So 10/13 class canceled because of Columbus Day. So you can see all that stuff laid out there. Or week 7, we're doing lab practical. So I made that look a little bit different to stand out because that should be all we do that day. Again, I reserve the right to need to do more. But, okay. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording here because what I want to do with the rest of the day doesn't really lend itself to recording.